Hello, I'm Dr. Harriet Fraad.
And I'm Juliana Forlano, here with our podcast, Capitalism Hits Home.
This is a show about the intersections of race, class, gender, and all aspects of personal life, which meld together like milk and coffee.
We aim to educate, activate, and even alleviate some of the burdens we all experience living in a capitalist USA.
We hope this program serves you well. If it doesn't, or if it does, of course, we want to hear from you. It's brought to you by Democracy at Work.
Now, I don't want to hear from them if it doesn't. I'm just kidding.
Tell us nicely.
Tell us nice. We're trying to bring a service here. Anyway,
Right.
Our main topic for the show today is going to be the intersection of sex, sexuality, and capitalism. We did one of these last episode, but this is part 2, where we're going to be focusing on sex education. But first, we have an enormous news story to present. Harriet and I were both so excited. Well, mostly Harriet, because she was the one following. But then when I heard about it, I was very excited to have her be able to present this to you. Harriet, first of all, happy 2021. Welcome to the new year. I'm excited to be producing this with you and to bring this kind of talk out into the public sphere. So happy new year to you and to everyone watching.
Same. And I am very, very excited to share this good news.
Yeah.
Women just won the right to abortion in Argentina. They had been struggling with this for a long time. They didn't win, and they thought they might in 2018. But they amassed against the forces of religion. The Pope himself pushed nullifying abortion rights in Argentina, and he is Argentinian. The evangelical church came out strongly against abortion rights. The right wing came out strongly against abortion rights in league with the Catholic Church and the evangelicals. And
so how did they do it?
Yeah, that's the exciting thing, what they taught us. They made alliances. They allied with the indigenous movement for land rights and respecting Mother Earth. They allied with climate change activists who wanted people to stop logging ancient forests and to clean up pollution as part of protecting Mother Earth. They also allied with the anti-femicide movement because women are casually killed all over Latin America, where their boyfriends, husbands, potential lovers are displeased. And together they did that. These alliances are so important. They teach us in America something so important. And Argentina is one of the huge countries, the most big, influential countries in South America. And the women captured their history. They wore green scarves because scarves were worn by the women of Chile when they would dance with their invisible, i.e., kidnapped men during Pinochet's brutal rule, supported by the US, of course, but whatever. And they won. And there were hundreds of thousands of people, millions really, celebrating in the street because it was a colossal victory.
Harriet, talk about, they're really the first of the countries down south of the border to win this right. Is that accurate?
Well, they have that right in, of course, Cuba, because it's a progressive socialistic country. Two localities in Mexico have it, but only 2 localities. And Chile, I think, has it because of their progressive movement, but it's the only big Latin American country. Brazil is fascist and does not have any kind of protection for women. And it's monumental because they made an alliance and they won. And they won against the amassed forces of capitalism and religion, who are usually right behind the right wing. So it was thrilling.
This is so great. And it's just a wonderful way to start Hopefully the year will continue. We can continue to amass some victories as we move
Yes,
through. Yeah.
absolutely. We need them.
How did it affect you personally to read about this? I mean, you have been working all your life for women's sovereignty and women's rights.
Absolutely. And I was on the abortion rights marches in the 1970s. And so that as abortion is whittled away in the United States, to see it being given at 12 weeks free of charge for anyone who asks at any age is thrilling. They have gone beyond the United States, as so many other countries do, but they have gone beyond the United States in terms of liberalizing women's rights against the forces of religion and the right wing. And so it thrilled me because it's part of a struggle I've been in for many, many years, since the very beginning of the struggles against abortion rights.
Oh, the
For
world.
abortion rights and against forced sterilizations, which used to be more of a big deal, especially for women of color in prison.
Mm. Oh,
But,
they're just
you
doing
know,
that
I,
at the ICE detention centers now. So
that's right. It's more
in Georgia.
centralized. That's
Yes.
right. Right.
Oh, well, there's always
Georgia
more
on
to
my mind.
fight. Yeah, we have Georgia on our
Yes,
mind
there
too.
is. Yes,
There's always more to fight for, which is not so good, but also good because it is the fight that we're here for, right?
that's right. And look, as we talk about sex education, as we segue into our topic of sex education, we have to face that we are a very backward country there too. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I have been reading about sex education in other countries. The United States requires sex education in only 22 states, and only 17 of them, 17 out of 50, require that it be accurate so that they
Yeah,
can teach that
scientifically
abortion.
accurate. Yes, I read
That's
that
right.
too.
So they can
Are
teach
they
that
teaching the
abortion kills
stork
you.
in another?
No,
What
they're
are they
teaching
teaching in those other states? Oh, abstinence. Yeah.
abstinence only, which got $75 million for its sex education program, even though it is totally ineffective. Those states that have only abstinence education have the highest rates of teen pregnancy. And the United States has the highest rate of teen pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases of all the developed countries, in large part because we don't have reasonable sex education.
You know, I read that under Trump, um, I think it was somewhere $200 million was removed, somewhere in that ballpark was removed from teen pregnancy initiatives, stopping teen pregnancy initiatives. And then more than 200 million, 250 million under Trump were put into these abstinence only education programs. It's just insane. But the thing that got me was that even under Obama, so this is not a political party issue, really. Even under Obama, tons of money was still going to these abstinence only education programs. I'm assuming there was political reason, obviously not a scientific reason. If the idea of sex education is to prevent, conceiving of children, let's talk.
Or
Let's just
unwanted.
let's get down to the nugget of it. Sex education is failing in this country for a number of ways, including what is the outcome? Because right now it seems like the point of sex education is to scare people into not making children in their teenage years.
Right. And of course, they don't even know what's happening in their teenage years in those states like Alabama and Louisiana have no sex education at all, and they have the highest teen pregnancy rates. And if you look at sex education in more civilized places like the Netherlands, where they start teaching, it's called Long Live Love, that curriculum. And it's about relationships, feelings, and one's own body. And they start teaching at 4 years old. How do you feel when you like somebody really specially? When you want to hug them? That they're a special friend? And where do you feel in all different places in your body, which is fine. It's not a genital approach. But then they talk about love and they talk about when you love somebody, They talk about their bodies. In Sweden, they have the most adorable little cartoons of penises and vaginas dancing around together and hugging one another and having a lovely time. But then they talk about their bodies, which are to be accepted by boys and girls together, and what are the different parts for, and how do they feel, and how do they make you feel. And the whole idea is relationships. And starting at 11, they start to teach contraception, if you want to make a baby or if you don't, and what you have to do. And they have so little teen pregnancy. The US has 271 times the rape incidents that they do in the Netherlands, because sex is a mutually consensual, nice time.
It
It's
seems
not
like
filled with
consent.
shame.
It seems like consent and what consent is something that should be covered by a sane society sex education curriculum. Yet what we really have is we used to say it was like they would draw the two fallopian tubes up on the board and, someone would get a banana and put a condom on it if you had progressive education, at least in my day. That was considered progressive to actually show a banana with a condom on it.
That's true. But we only teach the plumbing, if at all. And that's in only 17 states that have accurate descriptions. We don't teach sex as relationship, as love, as joy, as mutuality. And therefore, people are filled with shame. Rape is a vehicle of shame where you force someone because you hate them and you hate your own sex drive, rather than you accept it and you think, this feels nice. I want to find a good person and see where I can go with this and be both protected. It's a totally different thing. 1 in 4 American children doesn't have any sex education, doesn't know what's going on, but they watch porn and they listen to
porn is the
television.
sex education.
Yeah,
That's
it
awful.
is. They listen to TV. They watch videos like the video with what's his name, Thwaite Robin Thicke. I'm sorry,
Oh,
Blurred
Robin Thicke.
Lines.
Yeah, blurred lines.
Yeah, where people are hogtied in one of Beyonce's and seeming to enjoy being hogtied with tape over their mouths while they're being. I mean, really. And there's constant references to sex. The average kid watches 7 hours of media a day, and they're inundated with sexual images, often sadistic. And so the idea that you're protecting children from learning about their own bodies as if there's something bad about that is bizarre.
Harriet,
So you say to yourself, huh? Why? Anyway, go ahead.
now I have a thought here that I'm interested in your take on. A sex education as provided by schools and the state is not something I particularly am interested in. I feel like maybe sex education at this, and I don't know. And this is like a whole. We've named things that would be good to learn about, right? In terms of sex, mutuality,
Right.
pleasure, connection, physicality, the actual how this works physically, and actually the fact that you can become pregnant and there are STDs out there, and that there are things that can protect you from pregnancy and not STDs, or STDs and not, there's
Right.
like you can go on the pill and not get pregnant, but still catch, syphilis or whatever's out there these days. So those kinds of education seem important. I feel a little bit like there's so many different conceptions of what is appropriate to teach children and what sex is. I mean, we have these super religious people in Texas teaching this kind of sex education. And then you have, like in New York State, mostly just like, this is where your genitals are. They're not they're not teaching about choice, anything like that. What role should the state actually have, especially given the fact right now that our states aren't necessarily where sane people would want their kids learning about sex.
Well, one of the problems is it is state to state. The federal government tends to be more progressive. Trump was obviously a major exception. But if you have a curriculum that it's all about love and you adopt the ideas of the Netherlands, which has a teen pregnancy rate that's 271 times lower than the United States teen pregnancy rate, and you begin teaching children about hugging and how they feel and how nice that is, and when you want to hug someone you really like, and you go on, you also have a parallel science curriculum starting at 4 and 5 years old that talks about how if the bee doesn't pollinate the flower, then the male flower and the female flower don't get together. So there is no flower that comes and is born. Same with the fruits and so on. And starting at middle school, you start really teaching kids about their bodies and about sex as pleasure between two relating people. Half of American women have had their first sexual experience without full consent. Hmm. And look, we have to face it. A woman is raped every 73 seconds in the United States. And more than a quarter of those are children under 9. So we're talking about a terrible, predatory sex culture, like we did last time we talked about Pornhub. And you have this predation. If you teach children that sex is a shared joy as part of a relationship, and you do that throughout the country, so you can't have only 17 states teaching accurate sex education.
And I don't think they're teaching shared joy. They're just teaching that is a penis or whatever. They're
this goes into this and so on. And they're, why not? I asked myself, why not? Why do the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, even Germany, why do they have reasonable, loving sex education about relationships? And we don't. And part of it is the role of the church and religion is not what it is here. I don't think it's any accident that Putin reinstated the Russian Orthodox religion when the Soviet state capitalism fell. Because religion teaches the lines of dominance and subordination. We are all under the eyes of a watchful God. He is the authority as conveyed to us by our parents and our priests and our ministers and our rabbis and our imams. And you are nobody, and they are omnipotent. If you read evangelical child rearing manuals, there's a very good book on it by Philip. No.
Maybe for an academic study of it. Yes.
Yes. How to break the child's will. How to deal with your strong-willed child. The idea is break the child's will. Make them ashamed. Make them subordinate. Make them know the lines of dominance and submission so they will submit to authority for the rest of their lives. And that's a pernicious aspect of a lot of religion. And it's in rebellion against that the Argentinian women voted for abortion rights. It is our bodies. We have a right to use them as we wish and not use them as we don't wish. I think you'd have to have a national program, which is hard because capitalists adjust their textbooks to the states because you don't sell textbooks if you have a strong sexual education curriculum woven in. So you alter your textbooks to the state market. You also have strong lobbies. The evangelical church groups like Focus on Family are multi-million-dollar groups hustling religious restriction. And therefore you give in because, hey, you appease them, you get elected. You don't appease them, you don't. And so it's all riddled through. It's like a piece of meat that's very fatty, has all these veins through. And the fat is the lobbies, which prevent us from having a sane, kind sexual education curriculum like so many other countries in the world do. And I think we have to face that that's a problem. We are more religion-ridden than any of these other countries.
Ugh, and that's on. As I was looking into this topic, I of course looked to Dan Savage. He is the host of the podcast Savage Love, and he's just wonderful. It's been very liberating in terms of his talking about sex to people of every age. And one of the things that he said was that there were, the recent questions sent in to, I think it's called Scarlet Teen, which is in the UK. It's a place where you can ask questions. There are some questions that kids, even with sex education, these are the top questions that the kids had. My parents and I have different ideas about sex and relationships. How can I still be honest with them? And then, is 13 the right age for sex or romance? And then, how do I behave sexually without someone thinking I'm a slut? There were a number of them here. A problem with premature ejaculation maybe isn't premature ejaculation. These are questions that are not answered in any sexual education class that I have ever heard of.
Not
and these
in
are
the
what
United
kids.
States.
No, and not in the
But
UK apparently either.
No, but in the Scandinavian countries, they have a special question area where you can write to the teacher with your question, like, how do you know if you're a lesbian? I like girls, but I don't know. Or what about being gay? What does that mean? How does that work? Or how can I tell my parents? Also, throughout Scandinavia, and particularly in the exemplary Netherlands, all socialistic countries, by the way, they have sex education for parents, where they talk
That's
to
a good idea.
parents about how to talk to their children.
What a good idea that is.
Yeah, it's a very good idea, how to encourage their children to be safe and also have joy. And that is...
it's very challenging to have come from the sex education of moralism, the church. I'm watching a show right now. I'm forgetting what the name of the show is, but if I describe, it's on Netflix and it's about, dating and getting married in like England, like when you're royalty, right? So, and basically the young girl who is the protagonist doesn't know anything about sex, literally nothing, zero things. Mm-hmm. She doesn't even know about how conception occurs, like even the technology behind it. That penis goes in the vagina and she doesn't. And I think it's so interesting that is being, and that character is getting very angry when she finds things out that have been kept from her. So it's a very interesting show. I'm forgetting what it's called, but it's like the number one show on Netflix right now. But that's in the media is interesting, that we are re-examining what effect it has to basically have moralism as sex education. Well, that's moral education. That's not sex education. You know what I mean?
Sex is not an issue of morality. We have to take sex, which is a normal set of biological urges and so on, out of the realm of morality and into the realm of physical education and emotional education.
Yes. And it's hard to do that as a parent who I have a little one, I talk about it all the time. And you're like, we have to start at 4. I'm like, oh my God, she's 4.5. I'm late. I'm glad we're having this conversation. But my thought here is that I'm going to have to make the full switch from the way I was educated to the way I would like her to have the freedom to be educated. And it's like everything is so much heavy lifting when you're, you are awake and aware and radical and, progressive and a feminist. And that's not how you were brought up. It's like you have to find a new route for everything. So if you had any suggestions for people out there who are going to be teaching their parents and also retraining their own minds around teaching their parents. Freudian slip. Teaching their children, teaching their children about sexuality, given the fact that it's going to take a while. I'm sure she'll already be 20 by the time we can affect the United States as a whole to kind of get there, if we can do that, which hopefully we will work on.
You can get children's books and films from other countries, like the Swedish one of the dancing penises and vaginas. You can get that on the internet.
Get dancing penises. I'm getting that for me.
And in France, the Betsy series, because France is more enlightened, has a whole thing about how Betsy, and I forget the little boy's name, how he has a little faucet and she pees sitting down and he pees standing up, and what's inside that makes them pee. There's also children's anatomy books. There's one, What Happens When You Poo, that follows the crap all the way through your body. And you can say what happens, when you pee. This is what you do to pee. It also can feel good. And
I know about pee and poo, but it seems like to get to the real the meat and potatoes of sex that's not sort of being taught in terms of like mechanics, it requires, I'm so grateful other people have written these books already that we can go and take a look at. I noticed that we're
well, for teens, there's What's Happening to My Body for boys, What's Happening to My Body for girls, which are excellent things for kids from about 10 to 12 or 13. Because you want to, since most children watch 7 hours of media, which includes shame-filled aggressive sex, you do have to talk to them about it, and about how some people are kind of mean and rough and they're not nice people, and how some people want to be loving, and that you have these parts of you that can feel good, but they can also make babies. So you have to be careful not to make any babies you don't want.
Harriet, can you believe that we have filled 30 minutes already of we're at the end of the show. I can't even believe it. It's well, anyway, you're watching Capitalism Hits Home. I'm Juliana Forlano with Harriet Fraad, Dr. Harriet Fraad. We're pretty much at the end of having time, but we do want to ask that if you have that if you can support this work, that you go to patreon.com/capitalism hits home. Again, it's patreon.com/capitalism hits home, and make a donation if you can. We are brought to you by Democracy at Work. They have been generously supporting our efforts to be a weekly podcast for you and a weekly YouTube series for you. But we have to become self-supporting. So if you can self-support us with money, please do so. Again, we do recognize and we are totally aware of the dire straits that many people are in right now. So if you cannot support us in that way, that is fine. Just spread us around the internet, tell your friends about us. That is just the kind of support we need as well. So we do thank you for the support that has come in financially, and also for folks sharing and even making comments in this video. Gets it spread far and wide down in the comment section, and we read them. Don't worry. So we're reading them.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
And we're brought to you by Democracy at Work, a very worthy cause.
We are doing a sex education series. A sex series, and this part was sex education. Next week, we are going to be talking about sex for sale, the sugar industry, and then the week after that, we have sex. We're going to be discussing sex under socialism instead of sex under capitalism. So definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, and goodbye. We hope to see you soon.